and I reeked of all things unhealthy. And it was a bit of a wake-up call because I thought, here I am, I'd been smoking literally. I'd been stealing cigarettes from my mum's little case since the age of 10. So I'd been smoking for a long time, but it was kind of the kick up the butt I needed to get healthy. And it was my own kick up the butt. It wasn't Sarah telling me to quit. It was more my own. And to the listener, I want you to consider your answers to these questions. This study asked people over these 20 years, at numerous times over these 2 decades, as you age, you become less useful. Agree or disagree? If you were to cut a large chunk of that morbidity just by creating a healthy belief around getting older, that would have a massive impact on your life. And most people, sadly, do not have a healthy relationship to getting older. We're marketed to that you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not young enough, you're not gorgeous enough, you're not handsome enough. And so we're almost addicted to preserving our youth. Many people in business, and it's just even in life, would say, I've got no time to exercise, no time to socialize. I spend all my time in my career or my business. That is a hollow victory if ever you want to see one.
Welcome to Leading to Profit. I'm your host, Kevin Bees, and I've dedicated my career to empowering business leaders like you with the leadership skills, performance psychology they need to build thriving businesses. Are you ready for immediately actionable strategies from world-class profit leaders? Let's dive in. This is Leading to Profit. Here we are, episode number 259 of the Leading to Profit podcast. Today we have Marcus D. Pearce. Now, no matter your family history or genes, our guest speaker today believes that it's not all downhill from here and that your best years are in front of you, not behind you. Marcus is a longevity and life design strategist and the host of 100 Not Out, which is Australia's longest running podcast on aging, well, and longevity. He's an author of an amazing best-selling book, Your Exceptional Life. And each year he takes us small groups to the European blue zones of Sardinia and the Greek Islands of Ikaria, known as the island where people forget to die. So Marcus, I've been excited for this interview for a very long time now. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, Kevin, I'm so glad I'm here too, especially after a very chance catch up in real life in beautiful Brunswick Heads in 2024. It's been a joy to connect into your world, to see the incredible work that you're doing, and looking forward to having this chat with you today.
Well, it's kind of amazing how these things happen. I tell my clients frequently, like the 1 meter rule. If anyone ends up within a meter radius of you, they haven't been put there by chance. They're there for you. And I was at this amazing coffee shop in Brunswick Heads, and I was actually talking to the guy there at the counter about the book that was behind
Bruce
me.
or Kalen, might have been Bruce or Kalen. This is BK's in Brunswick Heads. Let's give them a little
BK's, great guys. They should get a plug. They got some really great marketing going on there. And I was talking to him about the book, and then he says, "Oh, there's the author there." And it's like, "Wow, okay, here's the author." Like, it was a pretty cool experience, and so it was so cool to meet you. And look, not everyone, you can write a book and as well written as yours is, but you also have some amazing people on here. We had Dr. DeMartini 6 or 7 episodes ago. He's raving about the book, and some other amazing, well-known people in here. People like Bronnie Ware, which people will be aware of as well. So. Certainly congratulations on it. I really enjoyed reading that book. And I'd love to get into it because the topic of the book here is about, your exceptional life, how to make the rest of your life the best of your life. Tell us about your experience, because I know, you weren't always maybe necessarily the most healthiest. You spoke in the book about earlier in your career how you'd be surviving on Red Bull and cigarettes, and now your life's very different. You're helping other people. So tell us about your journey.
Yeah, sure. I don't want to bore the listeners too much, but I will say, like probably many Australians, I grew up on Vegemite toast and maybe apples that were a bit moldy and barbecue shapes for afternoon tea, and maybe just pasta and a glass of milk for dinner and ice cream with Milo for dessert, and not really a very healthy diet. We'd call it the standard Australian diet. And then I'm a health professional who is now my wife. And when we met, I was, smoking and binge drinking and on the old Red Bull and cigarette for a morning tea. I was a sports journalist at the time, working at Channel 9, the AFL footy show for some people that love their sport back in the day. And my darling wife, Sarah, never had a cigarette in her life, as healthy as they come. And I remember one night I came back from a footy show, like post-show debrief, and I reeked of cigarettes and VB, and it was probably 3 a.m. I couldn't be bothered having a shower, and I went to bed, and my poor wife, my girlfriend at the time, Sarah's like, "Oh my gosh, what's entered the room?" And I reeked of all things unhealthy. And it was a bit of a wake-up call because I thought, here I am. I'd been smoking literally. I'd been stealing cigarettes from my mum's little case since the age of 10. So I'd been smoking for a long time, but it was kind of the kick up the butt I needed to get healthy. And it was my own kick up the butt. It wasn't Sarah telling me to quit. It was more my own. I remember at that moment like it was yesterday. And so, cut a long story short, Sarah and I got healthy. We attended Tony Robbins events, which I know you used to work with, Kevin. We did a vegetarian 10-day challenge, which became a 30-day challenge, which then we decided to go full-time vegetarian. Then we went full-time vegan. And then we moved to Ireland and cut out alcohol, as you do when you live in Ireland, which is very odd. But it became so wild that I became so vegan that I started shaving with avocado, thinking I was saving the planet. And I thought this was the answer to longevity. I thought you are what you eat and you are what you shave with. So a teetotaling, raging vegan, shaving with avocado, living in a thatched cottage in Ireland that didn't go down to the pub for a pint of Guinness. And it wasn't until we returned back to Australia, I read a book called Healthy at 100, written by the preeminent vegan author at the time, John Robbins. Anyone listening who's had a Baskin Robbins ice cream, John Robbins was the heir to the throne of Baskin Robbins until he realized he didn't want to age like his uncle Bert Baskin, who had already died in his 50s or 60s. His dad, Irv Robbins, had heart disease and was not a healthy man. So John Robbins, he ostracized himself from the family, became a raging vegan, and essentially became the preeminent vegan author. I read this book thinking I was going to be a confirmation bias read, thinking I was going to be told how great I was being vegan, until I came across a very concerning study which identified how wrong I had been. And if you've got a moment, I'll share this study with you before I finish my answer. I was on page 2 of the introduction of this book. It referenced a study by the Yale School of Public Health. This study was done on 600 people over the course of 20 years. And to the listener, I want you to consider your answers to these questions. This study asked people over these 20 years at numerous times over these 2 decades, as you age, you become less useful. Agree or disagree? As you age, you realize your best years are behind you, or it's all downhill from here. Agree or disagree? As you age, you realize you're a burden on society, on your family, on the healthcare system. Agree or disagree? Now, this study found that the people that had a disempowered view of aging, the people that thought that their best years are in their 20s or 30s, the people that thought that it was all downhill from here, those people died 7.5 years earlier than people that had an empowered view of aging. And not only did they die 3/4 of a decade sooner, their current day quality of life was not as great because, as you can imagine, they weren't as inspired about the future. They did not have a compelling future in their own belief system. So here I was thinking that my vegan diet was the fountain of youth, whereas this study didn't measure exercise levels, didn't measure genes, didn't measure financial status, how many investment properties you had, how much Bitcoin you had, didn't measure your marital status, how many kids you had, didn't measure your diet. All it measured was a belief. And it really got me thinking about what were my beliefs around getting older. And as an ex-journalist, what were the, supposed philosophical beliefs we were passing on to society through mass media. And I was kind of quite, I suppose, concerned by the messages that were being shared around society, around aging well. And that really prompted, I suppose, a massive career change. It was a real epiphany moment.
Wow. And of course, a real epiphany moment, because you're saying we shift our belief and the way we think about our future, and it's going to change not only how long we live, but how healthy our life is when we do that. It's kind of a little bit mind-blowing to think that your thoughts would determine that much.
Well, it's not mind-blowing in the fact that a lot of people kind of agree that you are what you believe, and there's a real mindfulness. I suppose, personal growth has become so accepted in the 2020s. Do you remember 20 years ago, if you were doing a Tony Robbins event, you were like the laughing stock of the office. So I think now people are very aware that your beliefs have an impact. But in countries where aging is a thing, and if you're living in Australia or a developed nation, longevity is a thing. You are going to experience average longevity in that you're going to live a long time, but with a high what we call morbidity rate, injury and illness, would be more than a decade of your life. And so my point is, if you were to cut a large chunk of that morbidity just by creating a healthy belief around getting older, that would have a massive impact on your life. And most people, sadly, do not have a healthy relationship to getting older. We're marketed to that you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not young enough, you're not gorgeous enough, you're not handsome enough. And so we're almost addicted to preserving our youth. And then on the other side, you've kind of got this science, let me call it a medical longevity movement, which is we want you to live forever or maybe 180 and so on. And so there's a don't die movement. And then there's also an anti-aging movement, which is like forever young. And it's a really interesting kind of dichotomy that society is caught in. And I suppose my work is on bringing clarity and a level of confidence to that so that we can live our lives with a conviction that we have a compelling future. And I think that's really important for humanity.
Tell us a little bit more about your journey on this, because you had this epiphany when you read, that book and you understood that. And then you started searching and researching for, exceptional people. What do you discover in your journey of doing that?
Well, let me take you somewhere that isn't in the book, and you'll appreciate it, and I'm sure your listeners will as well. And then I'll answer that question. Sarah and I did a lot of Tony Robbins events right around the world, Fiji, England, America, Australia. So you're meeting people from all corners of the planet. And what I found really interesting was that when people were doing these events, they might say, I'm going to create an exceptional business, I'm going to create an exceptional family, I'm going to create an exceptional health. But they would create the business and drop the health. They'd create a great family life and drop the wealth. They'd create great wealth, but they'd lose touch with their friends. And I'm very big on the fact that life is an and game, not an or game. And sadly, a lot of people either were too literal in their approach, but they were compromising other areas of life in order to make other areas of life exceptional. And so that can challenge people philosophically, because many people think, well, I have to give up something in order to gain something else. So when we started interviewing centenarians, graceful agers, icons of humanity, what was really compelling to me was that they weren't what we might call perfect in the areas of life that we thought we had to be. So nutrition is a perfect example. But what they were really exceptional at was having a compelling reason to get out of bed each day. They were physically active and they were socially active. Whether they were in their 80s or their 90s or their 100s, they had a reason to get out of bed each day, even if it was just to water the garden or to go and volunteer down at the local church or community centre. They were going for a walk and they were catching up with a friend for coffee and cake. And if I think about this in the modern, let's just say, business world, many people in business, and it's just even in life, would say, I've got no time to exercise, no time to socialize. I spend all my time in my career or my business. That is a hollow victory if ever you want to see one, because the consequences of that, dare I say it, a limiting belief around I don't have time to exercise or socialize or eat well or spend time with my kids or my partner or, read books, whatever it is, there's a consequence to that society, and I probably think a lot of personal growth, doesn't really share. And so I'm quite explicit in sharing with people the consequences of being really great at one or two or three areas, but average, or dare I say mediocre, at two or three or four. And a lot of those guests that we started interviewing for the 100 Not Out podcast demonstrated that they really lived a life that was exceptional in all areas of life. And that for me was the big aha moment in all of this.
Quick question. Are you leaving profits on the table? Discover where hidden profit leaks are draining your business and how to stop them. Download my free report, Stop Leaking Profits, at www.profit.gifts, GIFTS, and start maximizing your profit today. Now, back to the show. So get a compelling reason, be physically active and socially active. When you think about all areas of life, I know you have amazing information in the book, and I know you've got an awesome quiz that people can take on the website. Maybe just give us a bit of an overview. Like, what are these areas? Because it can be so easy for us to focus all of our energy into business and relationships suffer or health suffer. So what are the areas that we should be considering beyond that if we're just too channeled into one?
Yep, sure. And for people that are driving or walking right now, I want you just to think about this as I go about explaining it. So we've got 3 plans that we all must create in life. And if we don't have a plan, again, you fail to plan, you plan to fail. We need a longevity plan, a quality of life plan, and a heart and soul plan. So 3 plans and 8 areas of life. So the first 3 areas of life go into the longevity plan: purpose, movement, and social. To use DeMartini's words in purpose, do you do what you love and love what you do? That's point number 1, or area number 1. And then you've got physical activity, which I call movement. It gives you vitality. If you don't have physical vitality, it's very hard to love what you do and do what you love. And then you've got to have a great peer group. Again, using Tony Robbins' language, you become who you hang around. So then I go ... Who are you hanging around? And there's 4 key peer groups, whether it's our friends, whether it's our colleagues, whether it's our community or our special interest groups. I haven't put family in there because that's in family, but you can also put family in there. So they're the 3 areas of the longevity plan: purpose, movement, social. And then areas 4 to 7 this is your quality of life plan. Who wants longevity without quality of life? So in your quality of life is your nutrition. Now, not just what you eat, but how you eat. Do you eat fast? Do you eat slow? Do you chew your food? When you eat, because a lot of people eat way too late, or they just don't eat. Where you eat, clue, quick one, don't eat in front of the TV. Why you eat, hello emotional eaters. Who you eat with, sadly many people eat alone, and that totally interrupts not only their hormone regulation, but they're not able to have conversations and all of that. Bringing food and people together is great for mental health and emotional health and so on. And so we've got to be mindful that nutrition, quote is, to eat is a necessity, to eat intelligently is an art. So mastering the art of eating is endemic to a great quality of life. It has to happen. But nutrition without a great family life, again, is a hollow victory. So in family, we have 5 key areas of life. We have our grandparents and our parents in the generation above and above them. On our peer group side, we have our siblings and our intimate partner. Now, again, as you can tell, not all of these are relevant to everyone. And the generation below, we have our children. Now, again, we could also have our grandchildren below. We've got cousins, we've got in-laws, we've got steps, we've got halves. It's more than those 5, but you get what I mean here. The biggest thing around family is that family doesn't necessarily create longevity. Ask any Holocaust survivor or people that have buried children and lived a long time. Captain Cook's wife, Elizabeth, buried every single one of her children and lived to her early 90s. Victor Hugo, if anyone loves to read, Les Miserables, he doubled life expectancy in France. When it was 42, he lived to 83, and he buried all bar one of his children, and he doubled life expectancy. So we've got to be mindful that family may come first, dare I say it, in a crisis or when times are tough, but family doesn't come first for longevity. So when you hear people say, my family and my everything, I get it, but sometimes it becomes a toxic everything where the jug of life is empty because we're giving it to everyone else and we forget to give it to ourselves. And so family can often be complicit or caught up in that. But when you do family well, it really emphasizes your quality of life. Your birthdays are awesome. Christmas days are awesome. The summer holidays are awesome. When family's great, quality of life is great. Next is growth. That's fun. It gives you enthusiasm. Call it inspired hobbies, call it personal growth, call it traveling, call it reading. Above that is wealth, spending less than you earn, and invest the difference. So those 4 key areas of life, nutrition, family, growth, and wealth, they'll give you energy, they'll give you love, they'll give you enthusiasm, they'll give you financial independence. And hopefully the listeners can see that these are all important areas of life. You want them, and you don't want to give up any of them for a great long life. And then so those 7 areas live in a triangle, and then I draw a circle around that triangle with your spirit, soul, and faith, because your spirit, soul, and faith must infuse all those preceding areas of life. You want to put your heart and soul into your work, into your body, into your friends, into your diet, into your family, into your inspired hobbies, into your wealth, because otherwise you then have one big long to-do list. We can feel somewhat spiritually broken. We can feel fatigued. We can feel like we're not, living our best lives. We're trying to do all the right things, but we're forgetting to be the best version of ourselves. So hopefully, Kevin, that answers the 8 areas of life. I know I bang on a bit about this, but if everyone can understand those 8 areas and get their head around it, that'll go a long way to giving people their own plan to, dare I say it, make the rest of their life the best of their life.
I love it. Very clear. And, wherever you're listening, click into the show notes. There's a link there to take you to Marcus' exceptional life quiz. And it will take you through each of these areas and you can make an assessment how are we going against each of those? And I think for me, it's quite illuminating because you make an assessment there and you can identify, well, are you on track with those areas or not? And if not, then it gives you a clue on where you need to put your focus and energy. So if you're listening, is marcuspearce.com.au and you'll be able to see that. So I love it. It makes it very clear through the whole of your life. Now, Marcus, I know you spent time taking people overseas to the European blue zones, in Sardinia and Ikaria. What are some of the key things that you're learning from there? Are there some things that we should be immediately considering before we even assess these 8 areas of life? Are there some immediate things that most people could be doing to improve the quality of their life?
Great question. The first thing is, Kevin, most people do not want to age like their parents. And so this was probably the number one reason why my co-host Damien and I started taking people over to Ikaria and now Sardinia as well, because over in Ikaria, the parents and the grandparents are aging exceptionally well with quality in their quantity of life. And so in many ways, it's a belief-bursting trip to actually give people, I don't want to say no excuses, but it's a no-limit thinking trip. When you go to Ikaria, I'll be honest, it is a bubble. It's an island, a small island, 7,500 people. The whole island has the same lifestyle. So you don't go there thinking, oh, geez, I'm going to come and live in Ikaria. That's not why we go there, even though we've had people stay there for a long period of time. But you're there to observe what is their lifestyle and what parts of it can I bring back. Now, the biggest, cheat sheet on Ikaria is it's a very slow life. Now, you and I live in regional towns, which I think gives us a head start. We don't live in a Sydney or a Melbourne or a Brisbane where life is fast. But Ikaria definitely promotes a slower paced life. It also promotes eating food with other people. And it also really promotes, there's no flat land in Ikaria. So it really promotes the whole why drive when you can walk? The roads aren't that great. And because they have a slow life, they'll just walk the goat track for 40 minutes to a mate's place. They'll take some wine, or they'll just go for a walk and have a coffee with them. And so their values are I don't want to say their values are different, but they're challenging to us as, we have Australians or Americans, or some Europeans that come along, and it is counterculture to the way that we live our life. So it's challenging on that front. The other part of it is material possessions. There's not a BMW on the island. There's not a Mercedes-Benz on the island. One lady came with us last year, Lisa, and she said, for years I've been, my husband and I have been talking about doing renos on the house, $250,000 minimum. And I'm going home saying, I'm just putting palm fronds on the roof as a pergola. I'm not getting a whole big, wham, bam, high tech. So it does challenge your relationship to material wealth, and it does challenge how you might spend it or invest it. It does challenge you to maybe, I don't want to say live on less, but it does challenge a lot of that. So as you can probably tell, it challenges you on every single level. At the same time, for those people thinking you come home and you just go with the flow, I am as addicted to a calendar as anyone else. So it's not saying don't book meetings. And if you talk to locals, they're saying, look, we book meetings for doctors and our kids go to school. It's not like everything is go with the flow. But if they see a neighbor or a friend at the petrol station, they're never too rushed to not have a chat with them. There's always a chat. And so in Ikaria, they have Nike t-shirts that says just do it, and then it's ... tomorrow, which for us in business and in life, we're like, no, you can't kick the can down the road. Like, you can't do that. But in Ikaria, their priorities are their priorities. And if it doesn't have to be done today, they won't. And there is a great line. Ikaria will either suck you in or spit you out. And it definitely spits you out if you're in a rush and you want your coffee in 2 minutes, because, they're spending 5 minutes getting to know you and taking 10 minutes to make the coffee. And, that does challenge a lot of people. Wow.
It's great. You summarize it very well. And I do love the idea, that t-shirt, that sounds quite amusing, because it does fly in the face of in a lot of the ways that we live our life. And, I'm the same. I bounce from one call to the next call today, and it doesn't always necessarily give you the space that you need to go out and do those things. I did love that quote as well. Why drive when you can walk? How much money would you save if you didn't have your Mercedes or your BMW?
I still drive, and I'm happy to say this. I'm not embarrassed, but I still drive our Toyota Orion, which has gone through 3 different owners in Sarah's family. Her brother bought it brand new, who then passed it on to her parents, who have given it to us. And I'm holding on for my daughter, who's almost 16. That'll be her L-plater car, and then I'll upgrade, so to speak. But I'm just going to keep on letting that baby drive till she goes, which I wouldn't have done if I hadn't been to Ikaria. I'd be, I don't know, not embarrassed, but you're upgrading. We live in an upgrade society, don't we? Whether it's our iOS or our cars or, our homes or our wardrobes. So it is, again, that those trips do challenge a lot of beliefs that we feel like we almost get caught up in.
Yeah, I love it. It's so important for us to reflect on that. And why are we trying to impress other people is more important that we live in alignment with our values and what we want, right? And I think that's the important piece there. I have one final question for you. I know I could keep talking to you all day because it's such a fascinating topic to me. But we say that smart leaders have great answers, but genius leaders have great questions. So what question have you asked that's had the biggest positive impact on your life or the life of the people that you serve?
I know this because it is. I feel like it pulses in my veins these days. But there's a variety of ways to ask it. But essentially, is this exceptional or mediocre? So it might be, how do I make this exceptional? Again, I'm a journalist by profession, right? So it's like, how do I be the exception to the rule? So what is everyone else doing? What does the exception look like? You could apply this in wealth. You can apply this in health. You can apply this in pretty much every area of life. Exceptional is defined as being above average. Mediocre is being defined as being subpar. It's a bogey or a double bogey on the golf course. So, I am magnificently obsessed with identifying what does the exception to the rule look like? What does, for clients or myself, a bogey, a double bogey, subpar, less than what I feel like I'm worth look like? And I'm constantly asking that question every day of my life. Again, on one of your previous episodes, a mutual mentor of ours, Dr. John DeMartini, spoke about he checks in on his life every single day. I'm not going to tell people that you have to ask yourself this question around exceptional or mediocre every single day, but once a week, once a month, once a quarter, at a minimum once a year, what would an exceptional life look like this year versus a mediocre life? It's a really, and the quiz, as you mentioned, is a way to help audit or identify that. But that question I ask myself constantly is exceptional or mediocre, and to believe that I then have a choice to go after one or the other. Yeah,
that's right. Hey, since you coach, and I know you coach some very senior leaders on this, internationally, tell us, how do they respond to that? Because sometimes you can say, is this exceptional or mediocre? And we know it's mediocre. It's not quite where we want it to be, but going to exceptional can feel like it's a long way away, or it's hard, or it's difficult, or it's tricky. How do people respond to that question?
It's a great question that you ask, and it sounds a bit sadistic, and I feel like you might be the same, Kevin, if you're dealing with whether it's high net worth or C-suite or certain members of ELTs, is the more direct and almost the more I call it and call them on it, the more they appreciate it. Because if they're paying big bucks for big results, there's no use pussyfooting around the fact that this behavior is exceptional, this behavior is mediocre. And if someone wants value from anyone in a commercial exchange, they want the truth. And it's pretty easy to tell once have some level of rapport with someone, if they believe it's exceptional or mediocre. Sadly, many people are too scared to say the truth. We've got too many yes men or women. We've got too many sycophants. And so I'm very comfortable, particularly if someone's paying for the coaching or mentoring or speaking services, to be as direct as I need to be. I'm not much of an empath, as you might have just been able to tell by then. I don't lose sleep over other people's lives. But I feel like when it comes to business and coaching and mentoring, if they're going to pay me money, it's because they want the truth. And so I'm quite happy to tell them without being too worried about what they might think of me in exchange.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think it's a really important question. And, no doubt the group of people that you're working with really appreciate you being direct on that. And it is no point wasting their time. So get straight to the point. Marcus, I know you've got so much wisdom. I'm loving this conversation. I could keep going all day long with you on this, but I know you've got other things to get to. So just as a quick recap then, as you're listening then, make sure you go to marcuspearce.com.au and take the Exceptional Life quiz and identify those 8 areas. because you want to get a good a plan in place for longevity, for quality of life, and for your heart and soul. And in terms of the questions, ask yourself, is this behavior exceptional, or is this result exceptional, or is it mediocre? And if it's not exceptional, then you maybe need to make a plan to improve upon that and make that work. Marcus, I'm really grateful for everything you shared today. Do you have any final messages you'd like to impart?
No, just more than anything, I appreciate your invitation to have me on this episode. I hope it's been valuable for people. And if there's anything I'd like to wish people, it's that I truly hope everyone listening truly makes a plan to make the rest of their life the best of their life. We all deserve an exceptional life. No one that's ever been born has deserved a mediocre life. We're the exception to the rule by the very virtue of the fact that we were born. We won the race, as Look Who's Talking and other great movies have demonstrated to us. We have won the race. And so I think it's really important that we recognize that. And if we are here and we're alive and we're here to do our best, we owe it to ourselves to live our exceptional lives. So thanks for having me, Kevin. And really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. It's been my pleasure. And to answer your question, has this podcast interview been exceptional or mediocre? I give it exceptional. I think it's been really valuable. So thank you so much.
You've been a great interviewer. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you for tuning in to Leading to Profit. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. It helps us to reach more leaders like you who are committed to maximizing their positive impact and profitability. Until next time, this is Kevin Lees, and remember, you stop leaking profit when you're engaged in leading to profit.